back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. This is the part of the programming where I get the mental therapy and the help that I need around here. Many of you have said for 3 decades that I need this. Thankfully, Bill Cole is here from Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy. He was the originator of all of this crazy, maniacal, not sticking to sports stuff here a couple years ago when he pulled me aside and said, you know what, dude, you should be doing more charity, more community, more city, more civic, more telling stories about how to make the world a better place. So here I am, Bill. So I appreciate the inspiration, but this week, instead of doing all that, I want to talk about football. How do you like that?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to channel your inner good guy, and let's talk about something that's positive, like Baltimore Positive, as I try and catch up on all of your really quality videos. So I'm learning a lot, so it's hard to keep up. But
it's a sports week, right? So Muller and I got together, and he wanted to get Dick Cass on. We had booked Ron Shapiro last month, or maybe in July, and Ron had to cancel. I think it's like 4th of July we had Ron Shapiro. So none of this happened, and serendipity took over, right? Like, we have Dick Cass at Roos Chris. We've got Ron Shapiro coming down to Fadley's. Ron Shapiro sent me a 52-minute video. I'm going to hold parts of this up for the video for everybody watching out on Facebook Live and YouTube as well. But it was a 51-minute video, and I want to tell you this, Bill. It was the week that the strike happened in 1994. And, man, you want to talk about a wild 25-year snapshot of where Baltimore was and where sports was and where baseball was and where we are 25 years later, because this thing was taped on August the 18th, 1994. It was in the WBAL studios, and Ron Shapiro was the host. Do you want to know who was on the panel? So on the panel 6 days into a strike that would be the nastiest strike you've ever seen, the panel was Peter Giangelo sitting in the middle, flanked by player rep Jim Poole, flanked by broadcaster John Miller, flanked by former Oriole, then coach and scout for the Orioles, and a guy who walked the picket line and was Curt Flood era, Don Buford, was on the panel, and a very, very young, had a lot more hair than Jerry Sandusky on the panel. So the panel was at BAL, and Ron Shapiro is moderating this hour-long. It was called, you ready for this, Bill? 3 strikes and you're out. How about that? So they spent an hour, 6 days into the strike, talking about greed and money and finances and the players and there was no football here. There was no thought of any football here. God, there were 50,000 people downtown every night, right, for 2.5 years, and then they turned the spigot off, right? Like, then everything stopped. And 6 days later, there was no internet then, right? So you had to go to television. I don't know if the thing did a 30 share or not, but it was wild. And Peter Angelos, if I could play the audio of what he said for you and pot it up, it was an amazing segment because he said, now, Ron, this is why we're opening our books. This is why we believe all major league owners should be sharing their revenue with the people, because the fans deserve to know. I mean, probably the last time he ever said that, 25 years ago. Yeah. So, as we go into this, I'm talking to Shapiro, and I'm talking to Dick Cass. And isn't it an unbelievable thing that we're so waiting for football? Football's probably more anticipated this year than it's been in a long time. Would you agree with that?
Maybe just from a anxiety standpoint. Like, you really don't know what you're going to get. And half the town thinks it's going to be bad, and half the town, 3/4 of the town thinks we're going to the Super Bowl because they think we're going to the Super Bowl every year.
I'm one of those guys.
Right.
But I don't think we're going to the Super Bowl, by the way. Yes.
I just think there's a good percentage of people who are attempting to be realistic about it, and we don't really know what we're going to get. So I think that creates interest. Sure, absolutely.
Well, the fact that you need a scorecard, that if you have a closet full of Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, Joe Flacco, whatever those jerseys are in your closet, you better find a new favorite Raven, unless you love Brandon Williams and you've loved him, or Marshall Yonder. Everybody loves Justin Tucker, right? But figuring out who these players are. Who is this Earl Thomas that won championships in Seattle and, is a bit of a tough guy, you know what I mean? A bit of a brute around the facility. And I'm sort of digging that. There's a toughness built into all of this that you sort of want to see. But then there's Lamar Jackson, where all this chuck and duck, that's gone away. We're going to run the football. And I think everybody realizes that those last 8 games of last year, a little bit of a preview of what they want to do this year. And, I like to throw the football. I like to win football games. So, I'm a big fan of flying home from Miami 2 weeks from now a winner. That's what I like.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned. I mean, it was great when it was working, but San Diego showed you how to stop it. And that's not a shift that you can't do in a week. I mean,
but the way you stop it is you throw the ball better. You know what I mean? Like, you stop us, and then we make you pay for committing too much to the run. You throw the ball over their head. You get Hayden Hurst or you get Andrew. That didn't happen against the Chargers, obviously, but that would be the remedy, to throw the ball better.
I get it, and I mean, I'm hoping that first game, everybody's gearing up for the run, and all we do is throw it 40 times, and somehow we're magically good at that. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, look at this. Because I think we know we can run the ball. So we just need to be able to do both. So it'll be fun, The word on Earl Thomas is that he's actually a really good dude. I don't know if you've got a chance to spend any time with him,
absolutely, man. But I mean,
sounds like a really good guy.
He is a serious. He's going to the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? And he's flown into this circumstance, maybe in a way that Woodson did at one point, in a way that Shannon Sharp did at one point. Trevor Price came here late in his career, Chris Canty. There were a lot of guys that were really, really good for Steve Smith, Derek Mason, Samari Roll. I mean, there were a lot of guys that came here as a 30-year-old, as a grown-up, that really, Eric Weddle was one of those guys 3 years ago, right?
Sure.
I love that we are an organization. The Orioles aren't that organization, right? Like, they're not the organization that can go get an Earl Thomas in his prime. That's not the way baseball is structured when you're trying to tank and you're trying to lose more games than the Detroit Tigers. That'll be interesting. We play them 2 weeks from now, so we'll be playing for the worst. For football being anticipated, part of that, Bill, is that baseball has, gone away again, right? Like, you and I are familiar with what it looked like when baseball went away for a dozen years, which it did. It's gone now again for most of us because there is no destination viewing on any of this. Nobody's watching the games. I don't even know where they play. I realized they were in Washington the other night because they weren't downtown. The notion that this is the offseason they're going to get sold, Bill, or this is the offseason that the old man's going to die, or this is the offseason that there's going to be something tangible about the progress of their future, I do feel like we're on the cusp of some kind of change, Bill. And honestly, even when I did Free the Birds, and I'm wearing my Free the Birds hat from 2000, it's a 13-year-old hat. It's far too nice to be 13 years old. Maybe I have a clean head. I'm not sure. But at 2006, I really did feel at that point things were so bad that he needed something to save his business. I certainly didn't see $200 million a year coming over the hill from Masson, nor did he at that point, by the way. That was the eyes of Joe Foss that saw that from the Yes Network. But 13 years later, all the money's there, he's going to die, and it really does feel like something's going to change here. I mean, and people ask me, do you think the team is moving? No, I don't think the team's moving. Do you think the next guy's going to buy it and move it? No, because Major League Baseball isn't going to let him, and the St. Louis Cardinals aren't going to let a team waltz into Nashville, and the Rangers and the Astros aren't going to let a team waltz into Austin, and the Mariners aren't going to let a team waltz into Portland, especially now that there's a precedent that because your team sucks and your marketing sucks, you can get rich off of having a team move into your backyard. We've seen that happen, right? And now that the Royals are allegedly sold or in the process of being sold for in excess of $1 billion, I think this is a 6-month period where if we had real journalists around here, real questions would be being asked about Leon Black and the Apollo Group and the intentions of Masson and where are the Sinclair boys, and they bought, $11 billion worth of sports media regional networks last week. There's a lot of moving parts, and the baseball thing, it really does feel like there's going to be movement in a way where Peter's incompetent, Peter's not asking any questions, the team will suck, we'll take no further questions and know the team's not for sale, and nobody's available, which is what I've dealt with for 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think the sale of a team is an extremely private conversation that goes on.
As we learned with the Royals, right? I mean, Monday they weren't for sale. Wednesday we woke up, they were sold, right?
So,
that's how this works.
Our typical frustration with no one talking about it or no one being held accountable or, no one from the team showing any leadership. This is not the situation where all of a sudden that shows up and they can be up front and tell everybody what's going on. So I think you're just going to mire in, unknown weirdness for a while. I mean, there's really no activity that can occur on the field at this point that would indicate, one direction or the other. Maybe if there's some contract extensions that they elect not to deal with, that might give you some hint, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's a foregone conclusion that it needs to change hands. Where Major League Baseball is on that, who knows? That's probably an even tighter-lipped, group. So,
well, people lie about selling their business, right? Like, that is pretty typical, right? Like, I remember I had a restaurant that I did business with for about a decade. Used to eat a lot of crabs there, took a lot of Hall of Famers there. And one year I showed up, and the pepper shakers were no longer there, and the ketchup was now Acme ketchup, and the napkins were nowhere to be found, and the regular staff were quitting, and all of a sudden there was no gravy on the potatoes anymore because, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, And then I got a phone call in the middle of the night from San Francisco. Hey, I sold the business, and I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, you've been telling me for 12 weeks you weren't, but I get that you weren't going to be honest with me. That guy's now running Donald Trump's campaign, so I shouldn't be shocked by that. But that's the way this works when you sell your business, right?
I think so. I mean, I don't know that it has to. I don't know if there's any rule, but it depends on the posture of the people, right? So if you're the buyer, you don't want there to be 10 buyers. So you're going to tell the owner that he needs to be quiet about this. And then the owner's going to say, yeah, but I need to get at least, a couple competitive offers or put it out there. And, there's people that handle this and do this on a regular basis. So I think most of it happens behind the curtains, and we find out later what really went down. Somebody will tell us.
Behind the curtains. Well, part of the curtain is finding fair market value, right? Like the value of WNST is based on the value of whatever sells down the street, same as my home, same as Cole Roofing. The Orioles certainly got a nice little valuation from the Royals late into the night on Tuesday, didn't they?
Fair market value is just whatever the person is willing to pay, right? So I think baseball teams, football teams, any pro sports teams are not. It's not a fair market value sale.
Well, this is where it makes the Orioles interesting, right? Because everybody says, well, if the Royals sold for X, the Orioles must sell for Y, because the Orioles are a much better brand. Are they? I mean, are they really? There is no more D.C. anymore. So anybody that thinks of the Orioles as the 7-state watching the games in Nags Head, right? The games are on in Asheville, North Carolina. The games are on in Roanoke, Virginia. The games are on in Charleston, West Virginia. The games are on in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The games are on in Dover, Delaware, right? That's over with. I mean, the home team sports part of where the money was going to come from the footprint of all of it, that's still rolled into Masson if that stays tied to the Washington Nationals. My thought would be, for all that the Nationals have been through with Lerner would say to Rob Manfred, now that I've been boned for 15 years and everything that they've done to me, the next time around that you sell, I have to have a clean network, Rob. The next guy in, he gets the lesser deal. I took the lesser deal for 15 years. I got screwed around by this maniac up in Baltimore when I paid market value. Next time in, do me a solid. I've been the team partner. The next guy you let into the party, give them the B plan. And that's what's going to happen, because the Nationals are the market. DC's the market Major League Baseball cares about. They don't really care. If they cared about Baltimore, they wouldn't have this stiff owning the team. And they wouldn't have guys like me locked out for telling the truth. Major League Baseball doesn't care that the franchise stays in Baltimore. They care that the franchise stays in Camden Yards. They care that the franchise stays profitable. But the next owner of the Orioles has the same challenge that John and Lou had. Literally, right? The challenge is, how do we make people care again? How do we make people love the team again? And the potentiality, right, of the Orioles is Brooks Robinson and Eddie Murray and Cal Ripken and Baltimore love the Orioles and look at the history and all that. Dude, that's been obliterated by this guy. This guy has killed the brand. So there's not we're going to roll Cal Ripken out and everybody's going to run back. Maybe 15 years ago that would have worked. There is no magic pill for this that doesn't involve winning. We've all heard that, right? They have to win or nobody will ever come. I don't really believe that. I believe that now. I didn't believe that 15 years ago because they didn't have to win. They needed to be a good business, and they weren't a good business, and they haven't been a good business. But all that being said, there is this thought that, like, people are just going to roll back and you're going to, like, write them a check for $48,000 to buy, club seats or something next year. And I don't know where that money's coming from, Bill. I spend a lot of time. I mean, that's my real concern. People are like, Nestor just hates you, Peter Angelos. No, Nestor's real worried about the money in the marketplace supporting two sports franchises. That's what Nestor's worried about.
Yeah, well, I think that Major League Baseball and all the other owners are, interested parties in the valuation of another team and when it gets sold. So I think they will continue to prop it up to make sure that it at least doesn't sell for less than the Royals. Inherently it should be worth more than that. I'm not sure.
You think so, really? I mean, the Royals have like a Midwestern thing going on. I don't know. I don't know that to be true.
There's no viewers. I just think, unless you're tacking on a troubled city and a bad TV deal.
Well, you have to tack that on. That's real.
But Major League Baseball doesn't want to present it that way.
Would Major League Baseball put a team in Baltimore if they could pull the team up into the cosmos and put in they would not. Okay, so why wouldn't they? Because the Ravens are already here. The same reason that Tagliabue and Jack Kent Cooke and all of them never wanted the Browns here, right? Like literally, it is and Dick Cass will speak to this at Ruth's Chris this week. I'm sure he will, which is it's really, really a limited market, Baltimore is, because of Philadelphia to the north, Washington to the south, the money to the north, the ocean to the east, all of those issues that make us more of a locked-in, truly landlocked provincial market. And for that, we have to be as strong a provincial market as we once were 20 years ago, where we really do put 2.5 million people in the baseball stadium, and we really do sell out the football stadium, and there really is commerce tied to this downtown in Baltimore, which is the reason we as citizens, all of us, built these stadium behind my back.
I would not argue with anything you just said. I think that's a pretty good analysis. So the question is, why are they going to stay? They're going to stay out of historical, I don't know, things need to stay the same.
They're going to try to put the band back together, right? I mean, they're going to prop up a new owner, a new regime, a new day, and hopefully go to Dennis Colatzos and you and every other one of my sponsors that they've urinated upon and extend an olive branch the size of the Inner Harbor, the size of the warehouse wall, and say, we need Baltimore to come. You remember he took Baltimore off the jerseys. He took Baltimore off the letterhead. He took Baltimore off the franchise name and then tried to, put it back and thought that, all of us would forget. You know what I mean? It's like I'm never going to forget the people in cages that look like me at the border right now. I'm not going to forget that. I'm not. I'm going to have a long memory for that.
So if the numbers out of Nashville have to be so much more than what you would get from a somewhat viable Oriole team. I mean, you got to figure a new ownership, it won't be this bad, but I think the chances of it being,
Could a new owner go into Nashville and sell 50 skyboxes right now? For baseball?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
But
then it's not a good spot to go. Because there's a thought they could still sell 50 here. I don't believe that. I don't believe they're ever going to fill those suites again at that price point. I don't believe they're ever going to fill the lower bowl at $60, $70, $80 a throw, where my choices are go see Sting on Tuesday night or go see the 110 loss or even the 82 win Orioles take on the Minnesota Twins on a Tuesday night. If that's a $250 night in downtown Baltimore, the team's in a lot of trouble. If they have to rely on 23,000 people to do that, and I'm sure in whatever business model they have, there is no business model where nobody comes back to the ballpark. There is no business model left where no one cares about the team. There is no business model left where they don't fill seats. They don't sell stuff. And I'm wondering, who are they selling it to, and what is the price point? And then, who's buying it? Where are these people like me who love baseball? Where is the money in my pocket to give to the next Apollo group that's going to own the Orioles? Where is that $1,400, $1,800 a year that I give the Ravens? Where is that coming for times 12, 14, 18,000 people in this community? I don't see it, Bill. I just don't. I live here. I sell for a living, you know. I'm very worried about one of these franchises, and for me the Orioles are the weak one right now. And they're the one about to be sold. And when they get sold, Bill, they're going to be sold for so much money, right? Like, it's going to be such a debt service, right? That they are going to base this on 21,000 people just showing up again and 20 new Skybox owners and 15 new sponsors. They're going to have to do it that way if they're going to evaluate this thing at $1.3 billion. Because there's nothing that currently exists other than what the network used to be that's going to allow this to be that kind of a value to turn a profit. Now, these are billionaires. Maybe they want to lose money and get a tax break and run a baseball team. That's certainly, if that's what's in your mind's eye, if you want to be Mr. Big, this is your chance, right?
Right. Yeah, but I mean, okay, so debt service, like maybe we should be talking to a banker. Like, how does that get underwritten? So
tax write-offs are a big part of this, from my understanding.
Oh.
Yeah, they are. I mean, there's a huge tax shelter in owning a baseball team. Huge. Like to billionaires, there's very few things they can do to shelter themselves better than this. According to everybody I've ever talked to for 25 years, who's way smarter than me.
Well, then how the team functions is irrelevant.
Maybe we've seen that the last 15 years. Bill Cole is here. He's Cole Roofing and Accordion Energy. Go on about your place, and then I'll let you go on about making money for that. If you took the team tomorrow, what you would do. I'd love to hear that.
Okay. So, well, I don't know. We'd fix the roof, and then we'd put solar panels on top and create additional revenue streams because, we're not selling tickets. So
the warehouse would shimmer.
Right. We've been doing commercial roofing for 100 years. Everything from a leak to a roof replacement to new construction. Think schools, hospitals, shopping centers, commercial office space. And then 10 years ago, we started putting solar panels on those roofs, in those parking lots, and in the empty fields next to the buildings. It's a good time to do it. I encourage everyone to try and ask questions and find out about it. There's, again, I don't know if I would use the word tax shelters, and it's probably not as good as a baseball team. But
by the way, are there still really idiots who think this doesn't work, or that when the sun goes behind a cloud, like this clown running our country, sun goes behind a cloud, solar doesn't work. Wind stops blowing, windmills don't work. People are talking. I can't fathom that anybody would argue that using the sun is a good idea at whatever the cost. Now, to your point, it's become something that is sensible, right?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, there was an element of snake oil, black magic going on with this stuff, and we have mostly shaken that. I don't get that sort of resistance. Most of the resistance is related to the bigger deals, the commercial and smaller utility scale deals still tend to be very complicated and have a lot of moving parts from the financing side and the return side. So you're getting returns from tax credits, you're getting return from electricity generated, and you're building a financing stack that includes tax equity and cash equity and all this stuff. So we're still not to this place where it's so common practice that we just have, the car loan model where the dealer can handle it. So it's complicated.
Bill Cole is here. He's complicated. He's Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy and provides some sort of therapy to me on a weekly basis. So new owners come in. What's the first thing they do? Hire a team president, put somebody out in front of it, right? Say this guy's in charge, right?
So, yeah, I mean, I think you need to find a leader and think of it as, a restructuring. I would trim as much overhead as I could with a plan to build it back up as we get the thing moving back the way we want. I think you got to do a little bit of like the health and fitness gym model where it's really about how many hours a day you can utilize your space. So we generate revenue when there's people at the stadium just by selling beer. So I would create an entire plan to try and utilize my stadium more often.
Do you remember when they built the stadium, the whole idea was for Utah Street to be a place where people would come and have lunch every day? Do you remember that?
I do, and I think Utah Street, I mean, if you think about the open air, like market style, social, space that's being created in commercial real estate, it's right there. Like, put some vendors in, and Saturday if the team is away.
Well, Angelos owned it. Everything he's ever touched, he's destroyed. I mean, literally. Like, do you remember having lunch in 92 or 90? You were kind of young, but the Camden Yards, like the fifth floor, that there was a restaurant there that was open for. I had lunch there in February, off season, and they were going to run around. It's really incredible how many things that went away, along with Moonlight Madness and all of these other, that when the people went away, everything goes away. You know what I mean? Like the vision that Camden Yards was for Larry Lucchino and Governor Schaefer and what it's become, that's the real sadness in this for me, right? 25 years later, having to write about and see the Ron Shapiro video of what happened in the aftermath of the strike with this loudmouth who bought the baseball team. He wrecked everything in his wake for 25 years. And now he's on his deathbed. The team's going to lose 100 games, and we're in jeopardy of losing the franchise. We are. I mean, the brand is so bad that all of us are going to have to come back to save it under the new ownership, or the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to hear every day about how when the lease is up or they're year to year, we'll sign a 3-year extension and we'll give you guys 36 months to come back and buy tickets. You didn't buy tickets? Well, we're going to have to get on the plane to Arizona and, Indianapolis and wherever. I mean, I've seen this. I saw this when I was 15 years old, Bill. When people stop coming and there's no money, bad things happen. And right now for the Orioles, there should be a real healthy conversation going on amongst the mayor, the governor, the city, the state about what's going to happen. Because if we were in the market to recruit a team here, if we were trying to get an NBA team, an NHL team, or a baseball team, it would be a whole different discussion. I don't know why there's not more of a discussion about what needs to be done, not only to keep the team and get it in good hands from a sales standpoint, but to make it vibrant again.
Yeah, I just keep picturing, the warehouse and that, what do they call that, in front of the warehouse? That's Utah Street.
The promenade.
Why can't you have a farmer's market? Like Tuesday during the day,
Because it doesn't make Mr. Angelos enough money.
Right. Well, but does he have the right to that, or is that stadium authority stuff? Like, is that complicated? Is there sharing that has to go on there, and it makes it less profitable for someone who wants to hold an event there?
I think anybody who's ever had to get on the phone with Peter Angelos to hold anything at Camden Yards has found themselves incredibly frustrated. The only one that's ever pulled it off is Billy Joel. Literally. But hang on. The Pope. I was going to say the Pope pulled it off, but I think the Pope came before Angelos. If I have to do the math on that, that was organized before he got involved in it. Bill Cole is here. Gordian Energy, Cole Roofing, providing therapy for me and Purple Therapy. All right, it's your last chance. Well, no, you'll have a chance next week to make a prediction. So I'll let you do that next week. You can give me your 9-7, 10-6, 8-8, whatever you think they're going to be next week, and. Hang in there, dude. It's almost football season. We're gonna start to have fun again around here. I swear.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Miami, first up. And, of course, you can find Bill Cole anywhere Cole Roofing travels. And, of course, out on our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn, our Snapchat. Streaming live all over the world in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.